Hi, my name's Jessica and I'm an actress and theatre practitioner. I loved drama. I'd always done it really. And I sort of wanted to do directing or acting. I didn't know which to do, so I thought, well, maybe it would be easier to start off as an actress and go into directing than the other way around. So I did a drama degree and then I went to drama school. I started off being in the inner circle. I was then in Connected. I did various development workshops for plays like Double the Trouble, and I was in Sweet As You Are. The Inner Circle was basically written in that huge panic about AIDS, I think in the mid-80s, and we were doing it in about 95, and the panic wasn't so massive. It was sort of more under control, but it was a way of talking about sex education, and it felt like really, really important work. You know, you'd go into schools, you wouldn't necessarily have them on board during the show, but the drama of it would sort of get them in the end, and the sort of, you know, it was quite an extremely tragic piece where the boyfriend dies and on stage, I think. But it was in the workshops that it really kicked in, and, you know, you'd start talking about contraception or, you know, teenage pregnancy, and they'd sort of come alive, because I think it's so embarrassing to talk about it with your family and with your teachers, and just have an outside party come in, and people who looked like they were probably around your age. You know, we weren't actually. We all looked a bit like younger than we were probably, but you know, and it just felt like you'd get a shift in attitude, so they wouldn't give a hoot, and by the end they did. So that felt like really important work, and it also taught me how to perform, in that if you're not truthful and you're not entertaining them, you don't have them, and you really have to pull out all the stops to focus and concentrate and be truthful. And as soon as you just shout out, or if you know you're being a bit lazy, then you haven't. So it was a great training ground, I'd say, as a first job. I was in Sweet As You Are, which had 3 characters. It was written to debate the GM crop issue, whether it was ethical or not. I played Jenny, who had a boyfriend who was a passionate campaigner against it, possibly a little bit too passionate and not necessarily researching all the facts, and a flatmate who was a scientist who was quite canny and used to rein him in, and they'd have fierce debates, and poor old Jenny was in the middle, getting stressed and stressing about the furniture as well, and anything and everything. She was very sort of, you know, uptight, and it just, I suppose it just showed the extremes of the debate, and then at the end we moved it on, and Jenny became, for the purposes of the debate, she became somebody who actually quite supported it, so she argued for it. So I had to go and meet people at Monsanto and get very into it. But it was a very entertaining, comedic piece, aside from the debate, and it won a Fringe first. I did various workshopping of new plays. I think I must have been involved in the Learning to Love the Grey development, and Double the Trouble, where you'd be there, you know, reading the first draft and discussing it, and, you know, saying where you thought there might be holes for, you know, in the characterisation, or just general discussions about what it brought up, which was always very stimulating work. More recently, I've done some work in a local school in Tufnell Park, working on a production called Ceremony, which I think was developed in another school with a writer, and it was on fundamentalism. And Waitoa needed a school of a bunch of kids to put it on. So we were workshopping with them, around the play and put on a full production, which they did really well. It was a really rewarding experience, really interesting to work with, kids who are just passionate, untrained, sort of completely different bag, but they were great and they pulled it out of the bag. I'd go back to the point I made before, that you learn how to work an audience because you have to when you've got a bunch of unruly kids, or kids who are a bit bored in the afternoon and really would rather be elsewhere. And you really have to focus in on the truth of your performance to engage them. And if you're indulging yourself in any way, I think you lose them. So I think it's a very powerful tool for learning your craft. I think that the material's really good. So all the plays that are developed have so many layers and such interesting characters. Very lovely playwrights work with Waitoa, so it's quite a privilege to work on those sorts of plays. I think that there's the whole reward of doing something, engaging with the community, if you see what I mean. That's very satisfying. Plus it always attracts really nice people, so it's always quite a laugh. I'd say fulfilling. It means a production that stirs up a debate, and I think that the debate is therefore part of the theatre. It's as important as the piece itself. It's part of the piece. I think it takes a really interesting, perhaps a slightly dry subject, and it enriches it with real characters. There's always real depth to the productions. So it, I suppose it combines the head and the heart. So you get a full package.